I used to work at a 24-hour gas station, just off a quiet stretch of highway in the middle of nowhere. You'd think it'd be boring, and for the most part it was. Between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m., we'd get the occasional trucker, maybe a tired family stopping for snacks, but otherwise, it was dead. I worked the night shift by myself. My manager always said, "It's not like anything ever happens out here." And for a while, he was right. Until one night. It was a Tuesday, sometime in early October. I remember because the air had that crisp, dry feeling, the kind that lets you know summer's really over. I came in a little before midnight, said goodbye to the guy working the evening shift, and settled into my routine. Cleaned the counters, restocked the fridge, organized the candy aisle. It was just me, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and the occasional car that passed by without stopping. Around 1:30 a.m., I noticed something odd. One of the ceiling lights at the back of the store flickered, then went out. That kind of thing happened from time to time, so I didn't think much of it. I made a mental note to tell the manager and went back to wiping down the coffee station. Then I heard the chime, that electronic ding that goes off when someone walks through the door. I looked up, expecting a trucker or maybe a late-night customer. But there was no one there. I walked around the counter, peeked outside. Empty parking lot. No cars, no bikes, nothing. I figured maybe the sensor had glitched or the wind somehow triggered the door. I went back behind the counter and sat down. A few minutes passed, and then ding again. This time, I stood up immediately and kept my eyes on the door. Still no one. I stepped out and scanned the lot again. Then I saw something that made my stomach twist. One of the pumps, pump number 4, the one farthest from the store, was slowly rocking back and forth like someone had just leaned on it or brushed past it. But again, no one was there. I stayed there for a moment, staring at it, before backing into the store and locking the door behind me. That was another rule my manager had. Keep the doors unlocked unless something weird happens. And this definitely qualified. I tried to focus on the register screen, pretend everything was fine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Not from outside either, from inside the store. I did a quick lap through the aisles, calling out, "Hey, store's closing soon," as if that would scare someone off. Nothing. But then I noticed something. In the aisle with the freezer section, one of the freezer doors was open just a crack. I always kept those shut. Not just because of energy costs, but because the manager was obsessive about them fogging up. I reached out and pushed it closed. That's when I heard it, a whisper. Just behind me, just one word, "Help." I turned around so fast I nearly fell. There was no one there. I was frozen for a second, heart thudding so loud I thought it'd burst. Then, ding, the door chime again. But this time, it didn't stop. It kept dinging, over and over, like the door was opening and closing repeatedly, even though I could see the door. It wasn't moving. The chime just kept going. I scrambled back behind the counter, grabbed the store phone and called 911. But it didn't go through. No ringing, no dial tone, just silence. I pulled out my cell. No service. I don't know why, but that's when I panicked. Not the whisper, not the pump, not the door chime. It was the phones not working, like someone had planned this. Then the lights started going out, one by one, from the back of the store all the way to the front. Each light popped with a soft click, plunging more of the store into darkness with every second. I ducked behind the counter, crouching down, holding my breath. Then I heard the dragging sound. Something, or someone, was moving through the aisles. Slow, deliberate, like footsteps, but heavier, scraping, closer. I peeked through the bottom shelf of the counter, heart pounding. What I saw still haunts me. A figure, barefoot, pale, dirty skin, long, tangled hair. Their face was turned toward the floor, but they were sniffing, like an animal, pausing at each aisle, as if trying to pick up my scent. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. They stopped at the candy aisle. Then, slowly, they turned their head, just a little. Enough that I saw their face, and their eyes were gone. Just two deep, empty holes where eyes should be. Their mouth stretched into a grin, wide, unnatural, filled with too many teeth. They started walking toward the counter. I don't know what came over me, but I jumped up and threw the back door open. I ran out into the dark alley behind the store and didn't stop running until I was halfway home. I never went back. I called my manager the next day and quit over the phone. He asked why, and I just said I had a family emergency. I drive past that gas station sometimes. It's still open, still quiet, but I'll never step foot inside again. I still don't know what I saw that night. A spirit? A hallucination? Someone playing a cruel prank? All I know is that when I got home, I finally checked my phone again. There was a single text sent from an unknown number with no name attached. Just 2 words, "Found you." I used to work the night shift at a 24-hour pharmacy chain just off a highway in a pretty quiet suburb. I was one of only 3 employees who worked overnight, which basically meant we were just holding down the fort while the rest of the world slept. It was usually just me at the register, a stock guy in the back, and a pharmacist who worked in the locked prescription area. It was mostly boring. Customers were few and far between after midnight. Maybe someone grabbing medicine for a sick kid or a traveler looking for snacks. But most of the time, it was just us. Quiet, uneventful. Until one night. It started like any other shift. My coworker Alex was in the back unpacking boxes, the pharmacist was doing inventory, and I was at the front counting bills to balance the till. Around 1:30 a.m., a man walked in. Tall, maybe 6'4", wearing a hoodie and jeans, in the back office. "Can I help you find something?" I asked, trying to move the conversation along. He didn't answer. He just turned and walked back into the store. I radioed Alex and asked him to hang close to the front for a bit, told him we had someone acting strange. Alex came up with a box cutter still in hand and leaned against the end of one aisle. The man wandered the store for another 15 minutes, occasionally looking up at the ceiling like he was trying to find a camera or avoid one. Eventually, he walked out. No purchases, no words, just gone. Alex and I looked at each other, unsure of what had just happened. We figured he was maybe on something. Meth, maybe. It was unnerving, but not unheard of. That should have been the end of it. But 20 minutes later, the automatic doors opened again. It was the same guy. But this time, he had changed his hoodie. It was darker, almost black, and the hood was pulled up tighter around his face. He stood just inside the entrance, looking around. I locked eyes with him. He took one step forward. Then Alex stepped out again, deliberately into view. The man froze. "You need help with something?" Alex asked. The man didn't answer. He stood there for a few more seconds, then turned and walked back out again. I was rattled. We called the non-emergency police line and reported the incident. They said they'd send someone to patrol the area for a bit, but didn't sound overly concerned. An hour passed. No sign of the guy. The rest of the night went slow. Uneasy, but slow. Just before 4 a.m., I went to take a smoke break outside. I stayed close to the doors and lit a cigarette while scanning the parking lot. It was empty, except for a lone sedan parked at the edge of the lot, partially under a flickering streetlight. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe someone sleeping in their car or an employee from the diner next door. But then I noticed the driver's side door was slightly open, and a man was sitting inside, just sitting, watching. I flicked my cigarette and went back inside. Heart pounding. I didn't tell Alex right away. I didn't want to overreact, and I had less than 2 hours left on my shift. I sat behind the register, constantly glancing up at the monitor. 5 a.m. rolled around, then 5:30. No customers, no movement outside. But at exactly 5:45, just 15 minutes before shift change, the power went out. Total darkness. No lights, no hum of the fridge units. Just silence. Alex shouted from the back, "You good up there?" "Power's out," I called back. "Stay put." The emergency lights flickered on a few seconds later, bathing the store in a dim red glow. I glanced at the front doors. The man was there, standing, just inches from the glass, face pressed against it, staring directly at me. His hoodie was down this time, and I could finally see him clearly. His expression was blank, lips slightly parted, as if he was in some sort of trance. He didn't move. I froze. I couldn't even reach for the phone behind the counter. I was paralyzed with fear. Then he lifted one hand and pointed at me. Just pointed. I finally found my voice and shouted, "We've called the cops." He didn't move, didn't blink. Then, slowly, he walked away, vanished into the dark. When the morning manager showed up, we told him everything. He didn't even question us, just called the police again and had them pull the CCTV footage. They were able to trace the license plate from the sedan. Turns out the car had been reported stolen 2 days prior. They never found the man. I've since moved on from that job, but I still think about that night. About the way he pointed. About how he kept coming back. About how something told me that if I had stepped outside one more time, I wouldn't be here telling this story. Not everyone who walks into your store late at night is just browsing. Some of them are waiting. A couple years ago, I was working overnight security at a storage facility in a semi-rural part of Georgia. The job was easy, mostly just monitoring cameras, walking the perimeter a few times, and making sure no one was trying to break in or squat in one of the units. The whole place had tall fencing, motion lights, and keypad gates, so actual incidents were rare. The most I ever had to deal with were the occasional raccoons or drunk people forgetting their access codes. The company office was a single small building near the front gate. It had a desk with camera monitors, a mini fridge, a bathroom, and a cot in the back for the off hours. Most nights, it was quiet. So quiet that I'd watch YouTube or read to pass the time. That was the usual until one night. I remember it was a Thursday because I had worked a double the day before and had finally gotten some rest earlier that afternoon. I arrived for my shift around 10 p.m., grabbed a coffee from the gas station next door, and settled into the office. Around midnight, I did my first walk of the property. Everything was fine. No alarms, no open units, no signs of tampering. Just a cool breeze and the sound of crickets. I was sitting at the desk watching the monitors about an hour later when one of the motion lights at the far corner of the property flicked on. Normally, that wouldn't bother me. Animals often triggered the lights, but when I flipped to the corresponding camera, I saw something odd. There was a man walking down the row of storage units. At first, I figured it was just a late-night customer. Some people do come at strange hours to grab things, but he wasn't using a flashlight and he didn't go to any specific unit. He just walked, slowly, like he was browsing. I grabbed my flashlight and walked out to confront him, thinking maybe it was a trespasser who jumped the fence, but by the time I got there, the row was empty. I looked down each lane and even checked the keypad log. No one had entered the gate in over 2 hours. That gave me chills. I did a full sweep and found nothing. No open units, no one hiding, nothing. I chalked it up to a glitch. Maybe a shadow messed with the camera, or the system glitched and played back old footage. It had happened once before. I went back inside and tried to brush it off. About an hour later, another light came on. This time, it was near the center of the property. I pulled up the feed. He was there again. Same man, same slow walk. Still no flashlight. He walked past the camera, looked directly into it, eyes catching the infrared glow, and then kept walking. I froze. This wasn't old footage. This was live. Again, I rushed out, this time moving quickly and staying quiet, but once more he was gone, vanished. No cars came or went, no gate access. It was like he just appeared. I was officially creeped out. I locked the office door, made sure the lights were on, and sat watching the monitors intently. Minutes passed, then 30, then an hour, and then every motion light in the facility turned on at once. My monitor turned into a wall of white light as the cameras lit up one by one. I jumped up, heart racing. On one of the feeds, I saw him. But this time, he wasn't alone. There were 3 figures, all dressed in dark clothes, slowly walking between the rows of storage units. They moved in unison, deliberate, synchronized, and silent. I couldn't hear them, but I could see their feet shuffling on the gravel. They weren't carrying anything. They weren't opening units. They were just walking. I grabbed my radio and tried to call the property manager. No answer. I tried calling 911, but the call wouldn't go through. No service. That made no sense. I'd had full bars earlier. That's when I heard it. A soft knock on the glass door of the office. I froze in place, eyes darting to the entrance. I couldn't see anyone through the blinds, just the faint tap, tap, tap. Then a voice, barely above a whisper. "Let us in." I didn't move. I didn't speak. More knocking, louder this time, from the back door. And then the motion lights outside the office turned on. I dropped to the floor, crawling to the back room. I grabbed the emergency phone mounted on the wall near the cot and dialed 911 again. This time, it rang. A dispatcher answered, and I whispered everything I could. She stayed calm, told me officers were already on the way, and told me to stay hidden. I stayed there, curled up near the wall, listening. More knocking, now on the windows. "Let us in. We just want to look. You shouldn't be here alone." I shut my eyes and waited. 20 minutes later, red and blue lights lit up the windows. I heard the front door open, then